Hello there. In this episode of Gareth Jones on Speed, I'm going to do something I haven't done for 10 years on this podcast. And that is drive a new Ford. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm Gareth and I am a Ford fan. Yeah, if you've listened to this programme over the years, you'll know that I harbour a passion for one or two car brands. You know I like a Lancia, you know I like a Gilburn, and if you listen carefully, you'll know I like a Ford, mainly because my dad always had Fords. A huge variety of one car, actually. He always had a Cortina estate. We had a Mark I Cortina estate, a Mark II Cortina estate that we drove to Spain in, a Mark III Cortina estate, and then a Mark IIIB Cortina estate, and that was the car that I learned to drive in. Now, my mother also had a Ford. She had a Fiesta. In fact, she had, I think, 5 Fiestas in her whole life of driving. I don't think she got beyond the Mark IV, though, if I'm remembering correctly. But today I've been invited to a Ford event. It's a Ford range review, whereby we get to find out what's happening in the Ford empire at the moment. And their big message is unlearn. Everything you know about Ford, forget. We're starting from year zero. Now, why do Ford feel the need to do that, I wonder? Well, we'll find out today. You can probably tell I'm in a rather reverby kind of room. I'm actually standing on a mezzanine balcony overlooking a work area, really, where I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 20 Fords down below, all being studied by men wearing Ford jackets. I'm at the Henry Ford Academy in Daventry, Northamptonshire. This is where Ford train a lot of their apprentices and teach people the skills they need to build and maintain Ford cars and vans. Now, on offer today, the opportunity to explore some new stuff in the Ford universe. For instance, the new Transit with a Dagenham-built 2-litre diesel EcoBlue engine offering 13% improved fuel efficiency. That's quite a lot, really, isn't it? 13%. Don't think I'll be driving the Transit today. Also, the Fiesta and Focus ST line. Now, this is a new departure for Ford. Rather than sell the car as the Z-Tech S, it's going to be the ST line, which borrows from the quicker, sportier ST range proper. So I guess it gets a lot of the kit, but not the performance that you get with a proper ST. The ST line is currently available on the Fiesta and the Focus and is coming to the Mondeo and the Cougar soon. Also, I get to explore the latest Sync 3 connectivity system, which is compatible with Apple CarPlay and Android. And being as I'm an Android user, I'm very happy with that. It's already available on the Mondeo, the Edge, the S-Max and the Galaxy, and large cars and medium cars range get it by the end of the year. And finally, I get a chance to drive, I hope, if I can bag a car, the new range of Ford SUVs, the Edge and the EcoSport Titanium S. So, plenty to do today. We've got a bit of a briefing in a moment, so I'm going to go and attend the briefing and find out what it is I have to unlearn about Ford today. A short and very packed presentation by some people from the Ford Motor Company for their range review day. Let go of what you know is their slogan at the moment. I'm sure that was a single by a 90s Britpop band. Go further, Ford also say. Being a huge multinational corporate entity, Ford do like their slogans, and that's okay with me. That's okay. You've got a slogan, you know where you're going. With a presentation from Oliver Rowe, Product Affairs Manager, and then Owen Gregory, who's the Director of Fleet Operations, took over. Told us a little bit about the Henry Ford Academy. 7,000 trainees come through here every year, where they train people who work in dealerships here, and the parts operation is based here as well next door, so they have access to all the bits that they need to practice with, I suppose. It's a bit like going back to school, this, which is sort of appropriate for this time of the year when kids are going back to school. I'm relearning or unlearning what I knew about Ford. The most significant thing I have unlearned at the moment is the name of Ford's smallest SUV. I've been calling it the EcoSport, but Ford call it the EcoSport. I think I heard that in the adverts as well. But the engine in it is the EcoBoost, or the EcoBlue engine now. So even though it's got an EcoBlue, it's an EcoSport. Okay, fair enough. The Ford EcoBlue engine, which is a diesel engine that meets stage 6 Euro compliance, it has the AdBlue filler right next to the diesel filler now, so it's easy to find, and as AdBlue becomes rolled out in service stations all over the country, more people are going to be using it, so let's make it easier. That's what Ford say, let's make it easier to add blue. And being as this was a Ford corporate presentation, I heard the expression going forward twice in the first 10 minutes. Someone's got to say it, haven't they? They're very excited about a lot of their range. The Ranger is doing particularly well at the moment. 34% market share, they say, and I'm standing in front of one at the moment. There's a display of a range of Ford cars downstairs. The Ranger, which, you know, is the pickup that competes with the Hilux and the Navara and the Amarok, and it's, I think, the only one I haven't driven at the moment. The one I'm standing next to is the Wild Track, which is a sort of the lifestyle version with a 3.2 litre engine. It's a big old truck, and don't you worry, I shall be trying to drive one of those at some point, but not today, because today for me is all about the Fiesta, for a very good reason, which I will explain a little bit later on. 125,000 Fiestas were sold last year. It's pretty good, isn't it? Also in this room of a display of some new Fords, apart from the Ranger, there is the Mustang convertible, which amazingly looks like a Ford. Do you know what I mean by that? You know, there's a quality to a Ford, isn't there? Sort of a robust, not too flash kind of quality. And seeing my first Mustang close up, you get a sense that this could be made by the same people who make the Focus and make the Fiesta. Do you know what I mean by that? Part next to it is the Focus RS. Oh, baby. But arguably the most interesting is the little Car Plus. Now this is a new car in the B segment for Ford, which comes in underneath the Fiesta. So what that's done is bump the Fiesta up market a little bit. They've killed some of the lower spec Fiestas, allowing the Car Plus, which offers enormous value, Ford say, to fit in underneath it. And how about this? You're going to be the first person to go in a Car Plus built in India, as far as I know, and in I get. I was in it a second ago having a look round, and in typical sort of Ford way, this is absolutely brilliant. I'm looking at the cup holders, right? There are two down in between the front driver and passenger seat, and then another two just in front of that, and also a space for arguably at least one more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In the door, you've got a place for at least 2 big bottles, and the passenger door. I'm out for the back. Okay, so the rear two in the central console are for the people in the back. Car Plus, yeah, plasticky. It's an economy car, but it's got some shiny stuff too as well. Lots of that gloss black that you put around controls these days. And yeah, looks like a Ford, built in India, like the EcoSport. Or is that built in Brazil? It used to be built in Brazil. I think they build it in India now. I'll try and find out when I talk to some of the people here. Yeah, the Car Plus is okay, good looking. He said getting out of it. It's kind of cute. Small wheels. I like cars with small wheels. I think it's got a shade of Kia Picanto about it. Definitely. Maybe it's just the relationship between the size of the wheels and that slope of the rear hatch. Hey, lots to discuss. Oh, one more car I haven't mentioned here, which I quite like to drive today, but I don't know if I'll get the chance. The Ford Edge. Ford's biggest 4x4, about the size of a BMW X5, I suppose, but made by Ford, and I think I'm right in saying built in Canada. So maybe that's what Ford wants us to unlearn, that all their cars are built in Europe.
Gareth
loads on speed! Right, I managed to get myself something to drive, and I'm very pleased to say it's a Fiesta. It's the Fiesta ST200 6-speed manual in Storm Grey, a 1.6 litre turbocharged Fiesta. So this thing should be fun to drive. Let's go and drive it. Ooh, very short geared in first. Plenty of grunt in second. Fruity sound in third. And then you have to slow down. Cool. Right, sorry about all that noise. I've picked up my recorder now, so it's a bit closer to my face. Oh, I think I've driven us into a dead end. Right, okay, let's turn round. In part of the presentation that we had today, one of the chaps talking was saying how the Ford are introducing this ST line, which is an opportunity to buy a Ford with lots of the stuff that you get on the Ford ST series, you know, sports steering wheel, body kit, lots of extra kit, but without all the power of the engine, which is, if you think about it, a very Ford thing to do, isn't it? That's just the sort of thing they like to do. They make their cars available to everybody, all variations, all spec, available in all combinations. What the Vulcans called infinite diversity in infinite combinations, IDIC. It's the principle of Vulcan philosophy, that we're all different and that we all should come together in new varieties to make new differences. Okay, that's a little grand compared to talking about a car, but you get what I mean, don't you? Right. The only thing about driving a manual car when you're recording a podcast is if you're holding the recorder, you can't change gear on roundabouts, which is a bit of a blow, really. My mount, I haven't brought the right mount with me for my recorder today, so we'll have to struggle a bit. Okay, struggling. I'm in third, doing 2,000 revs, 40 miles per hour, and it wants me to change down. It's not that it's... Okay, that's the gearbox. I was probably in 12th gear. Makes a nice little noise, this, doesn't it? The Fiesta, let me tell you about the Fiesta. I was just chatting to one of the chaps from Ford, explaining my passion for the brand. I'm absolutely serious about this. I wasn't licky up to the Ford people. It's just that I've been brought up around Fords. And one of the coolest things that ever happened to me as a young man, a car fan, involved Ford. Exactly 40 years ago, our local Ford dealer, Mr. Hone, who was a mate of my dad's, because of course Dad bought lots of Fords, said, "Oh, your son Gareth likes cars, doesn't he? Yes. Would you like to see the new baby Ford that we're making?" And Dad said, "Yes, I certainly would." So picked me up, collected me, and took me to the local Ford garage, and not in the showroom, but in the storeroom at the back, they had a Fiesta. It was under wraps, and in 1976, we'd seen pictures in magazines, motor and autocar, but we didn't have internet where you could get lots of video and clips of the car just yet. So seeing it for the first time in the flesh was absolutely breathtaking. And Mr. Hone allowing me to see that car before it was released, you know, "Come here, Gareth, this is a secret area," all that. I think that hammered home my allegiance to the Ford Motor Company. That one moment made me think, yeah, I could dig Ford. I remember reading a book, possibly one of the first books I ever read about cars, was a book, if I remember, it was called Project Bobcat, because that was the code name for the Ford Fiesta before it was released. Project Bobcat, because Bobcat, when you think about it, has no tail, a short tail. a little stumpy thing like a Manx cat. And the Fiesta was Ford's first hatchback. Up until then, all Fords have been saloon cars in Europe. I suppose the first Ford hatchback was probably the Ford Pinto. Certainly the first hatchback in the UK was the Fiesta. And when it first came out, I think it was only available with a 1.1 litre engine, if I remember. And I remember when they said that the gear version was coming out, that was going to have the 1.3, and that felt like, whoa, yeah, big engine in a little car. And here I am in a 1.6 litre turbocharged 200 horsepower Fiesta. My, how it's come a long way. I'm interested to compare this Fiesta to the very first Fiesta, just in terms of interior room and space, because I always remember getting in that very first Fiesta, sitting down and reaching my arms out in front of me and waving them around. I know I was a smaller man and I was only 15 years old, but that sense that, wow, there's loads of space in here, in that sort of 70s big windows way. Since then, cars have got a bit more solid looking. We have smaller glass areas on cars now. They look less like glass houses and more like, I don't know, military vehicles. You know, the idea of building something that looks robust is how a lot of car manufacturers approach their vehicles these days. So, what do I think of this robust little vehicle? Difficult to tell at the moment because I'm not on an open winding road, and I get the impression that the ST200 is the sort of car that you need a good open flowing road for, otherwise you're never really going to enjoy it. A bit like that Seat Leon Cupra I drove. Such was the level of performance of that car, I don't think I got anywhere near really being able to enjoy that car. This is the car that holds the record on the Nürburgring, and perhaps the thing to do is for me to drive it on the Nürburgring as God intended, or perhaps as engineering intended. But here I am in a Fiesta on a bit of shared road surface. Is that what we call it? Shared space. Have you ever seen a shared space before? It's a bit of road where there is no distinction between the height of the pavement and the road has got sort of cross-hatched brick rather than tarmac, and so it makes you slow down and drive more carefully because you're not sure if you're supposed to be here. It's a bit like driving through a paved shopping precinct or something. Right, I'm going to put the recorder down and try and find some open road and have a bit of driving fun. Well, I had an opportunity to drive that ST200 quite quickly because whilst I was trucking around, I realised I'd left my GoPro camera back at the Ford headquarters in the canteen where we were having lunch. And whilst I'm sure all the employees at the Ford Motor Company are very trustworthy people, I didn't want to leave my GoPro there, which is a crucial bit of Gareth Jones on Speed kit. So I decided to dash back and collect it. And dash was the word. By gum, that thing turns in. Oh, isn't it? Roundabouts. Oh, and the fruity sound it makes. I'm sorry that I didn't record it at the time. And the eagle-eared of you will notice that the sound of the car I'm driving has changed quite dramatically because I'm no longer in an ST, because in the time I took to park the car, walk back to the canteen, collect my GoPro and then come back, some other journalist had popped out in the ST200. To stifle my disappointment, I thought I'd try something else interesting. And you're going to laugh at me at this, because the car I chose of all the cars available was the Ford EcoSport. And I know what you're thinking. What? Jones? Really? That funny looking thing that really isn't a driver's car or an enthusiast car in any way? In fact, what is the EcoSport for? I'm sure some of you are asking. And you're not alone in thinking that, because when the EcoSport first came out, I remember thinking, what the heck have they done with the styling of that car? It's all over the place. It just looks wrong. It just looks wrong. But the reason I got into this Ford EcoSport was that it's the first EcoSport I've seen and thought, ooh, that looks quite cute. Because this is the EcoSport Titanium S, a new extension to the EcoSport range. This one's got 140 PS horsepower, so you think about it, it's still pretty handy. It's not 200 and it doesn't have the sport suspension like that ST200 has, but 140 is pretty useful when you consider the original Ford Fiesta when it came out, I think, had, was it 60 brake horsepower? Quite a difference, eh? Quite a difference. But the EcoSport, I was asking about where they build it, and it is built in India. But did you know that Ford have two different plants in India? One where they build the EcoSport and one where they build the Car Plus. And the Ford Ranger is no longer built in Thailand because it just took too long to get the car from there to Europe to sell it. It's now built in South Africa, in Port Elizabeth, which, if you think about it, is the spiritual home of Ford pickups. Do you remember, what was it called, the P100, that Mondeo based pickup that was built in South Africa that I thought was quite cool back in the actually it wasn't Mondeo based, was it? Of course it was a Sierra based pickup. Yes, you could buy them in this country. Probably the first Ford built in South Africa that you could buy in this country. Not necessarily the first car built in South Africa that you could buy in this country. Remember the Saul Penza? Saul for South Africa. And what else is built in South Africa? I think Mercedes and BMW both built cars out there. And I think some of them were sold in Europe. I'm not certain. But this one, not from South Africa. This one, the EcoSport, from India. What's it like? Well, you know, I used to like the Ford Fusion. I always thought the Ford Fusion was a sensible idea for a car because it offered a lot of the stuff that a 4x4 does without any of the drawbacks. The drawbacks of the 4x4 is that they're big, they're bulky, and they carry four-wheel drive technology around with them where most people just don't use it. And I thought that the Fusion was a great car for particularly older people who don't like to bend getting in and out of cars, and to be able to step into a car at standing height rather than crouch down is something that 60 and 70 year olds and 80 year olds really enjoy in a car, and the Fusion used to do that well. And this is the EcoSport, which is the replacement for the Fusion, and it's got a bit of chirruper quality to it. Can you hear it thrumming? Doesn't have the urgency of the ST, but that's alright. I'm doing 65 miles per hour now. So next time you see the EcoSport, think, oh, that's not as bad a car as Gareth first thought it was. In fact, the fact that it's now a Titanium S makes it look really cool. No, I'm serious. Cool. Check out the wheels. Next time you're passing a Ford dealership, go and have a look at the Eco S and have a look at the wheels. It's come a long way. I like a utilitarian car. I like the Cactus a great deal, the Citroen Cactus. I love the way that it looks robust without being macho. And I think the EcoSport's starting to do that now. It's not as cute as a Cactus, but you know what? It's not bad. Not bad at all. I just went for a drive in the EcoSport, not EcoSport, and realised when it was time to come back I had no idea where I was, so I went to turn on the sat-nav and there was no sat-nav. This particular model, this EcoSport Titanium S 5-door, seems to come without sat-nav. I'm sure it's available as an option, and it's good to have my phone with me. I was able to find my way home. You can hear I've got my phone with me. It's probably beeping across the microphone right now. But yeah, that was good. Quite like the EcoSport. One minor niggle: when you put your foot flat to the floor on the clutch, you can feel the steering column rod rotating against your toes. So that's not ideal, but everything else about it, quite reasonable. But I suppose that's the idea of the EcoSport. It's just supposed to be a reasonable car. It's not supposed to be a magnificent car. Right, let's go and see if I can find a magnificent car to drive.
Gareth Jones on speed!
I've found something to drive that's... well, I don't know if it's exciting. It's very, very interesting. This is the first of the Ford Vignale trim that I've experienced so far. I found an S-Max Vignale. You know what Vignale is? It used to be gear. It's above Titanium X. Ford, because they listen to their customers, this is what they told us in the presentation. Customers keep saying, can we have something with more and more spec? And every time people want a car with greater spec, then they have to create a new trim level to accommodate all the extra bits that you get. So I'm sitting in a Ford S-Max Vignale, which has got the 2-litre Duratorque diesel direct injection engine, delivers 210 PS, and it's a bi-turbo. This one comes with 10-spoke alloy wheels, premium painted finish. It's got a Vignale grille, which is different to the standard S-Max grille. Chrome inserts on the door handles, chrome detailing, or dark chrome detailing, front and rear parking sensors. Surely you get that in the S-Max, surely. The options: panorama roof, 750 quid's worth of glass roof, active city stop, active park assist, rear sunblinds, front wide view camera, hands-free power tailgate. I was in the tailgate earlier on. I didn't activate the hands-free thing by just putting my foot underneath the rear bumper. I should have done that. And 19-inch alloys, 700 quid's worth of alloys. Let's drive it. It definitely feels premium. I know, I'm programmed to say that kind of thing because it's a Vignale. But it actually does. There's a world of a difference between the basic spec of even the Titanium EcoSport and a Vignale in the Ford range. And you know I've got a soft spot for the S-Max. When we first did a bit of video for Gareth Jones on Speed some 12 years ago, 11 years ago, the first car that we had to do that in was a Ford, of course, and it was a Ford S-Max. And I loved it. I remember thinking, this is basically just a giant Ford Fiesta. But the Fiesta has come a long way since then, and so is the S-Max. This latest S-Max, as you know, based on the new American Mondeo platform. That's the Fusion platform. I'm sure Ford have got a better name for it, but that's what I call it. Alright, I'm in a diesel. You can hear it's a diesel. Grumbling, but a bi-turbo. Grumbling and whizzing to give you enough grunt when you need it. The question is, who's going to spend, 39 grand on a Ford? Well, someone who's a bit like me, I suppose. Someone who's had an S-Max before, knows how nice the S-Max can be, but wants a super top spec version. But when you're spending 40 grand on a car, you might consider other options as well, like your Mercedes and your BMWs and your Audis. Can Ford compete in the premium market? Well, they have to, because there was a period when Ford owned Land Rover and Jaguar and Volvo, which gave them a premium range, and they no longer have those brands. So they've got to force their own brand to the top. People are still going to call it a Ford, aren't they? They're going to call it an S-Max. They're not going to say, I drive a Vignale. No one will say that, will they? No one will say, I drive a Vignale. Not while the Ford badge remains on the car. It's a bit like Abarth. People still drive Fiats, but it's the Abarth version. Do you know what I mean? you don't actually drive an Abarth, you drive a Fiat, but it's the Abarth version. I'm driving a Ford, but it's the Vignale version. Oh yes, Ford gear. You know, it's the same culture, isn't it? It's company reps, people who drive company cars, who want to be able to say that they've got a better spec version than the person who works beneath them in accounts. It's that sort of thing. It's a nice place to be. I do like the S-Max. I know there's not a great deal of difference between the S-Max and the Galaxy. Really, it all happens at the back end. But the S-Max is, of all the MPVs, this is the sporty one to drive on. The thing which gets closest to having a degree of sportiness to it, a good drive. The spec inside here is lovely. These white leather seats, which I think are covered in some kind of crazy breathable leather. Lots of dots of holes, almost like a leather net. And they really are stunning to look at, stunning. I had a crawl around the car before I drove it. The third and second row of seats can be popped down at the press of a button. There's an electric motor which throws them flat, but if you want to pop them back up again, that's manual. That's okay. I don't know what mode I'm in at the moment. I haven't explored this, but I would imagine there are all sorts of buttons on this car which allow me to change the mode that I'm driving in: eco, comfort or sport. What I'll do is I'll put the recorder down and I'll explore some of the capacity of this car and report back. I'm parked up in my Vignale S-Max. You like the way I call it mine? I think I may have formed an emotional attachment to this car, and I am enjoying the quality and the quiet of this car. Oh, just as it decides to pop itself out of stop-start mode and come back. Very nice of it to do that. Probably just to top up the battery or the air conditioning or something that I've got going at the moment. It's a very different experience to the other Fords that I was in earlier on. I remember noticing on the EcoSport that the screen was minuscule and tucked away in this little sort of tunnel miles away, whereas on the Vignale S-Max you've got this enormous screen. Well, when I say enormous, I'm not talking about Tesla scale or enormous, but you know, a good hand size that's very easy to read and touch screen. I would imagine this is Ford's Sync 3, which allows you to sync up your phone to the entertainment system in the vehicle, and that allows you to use any apps that you've got on your phone on the vehicle. Now, I haven't done that because the sound of my phone bleeping across a recording would not be terribly welcome. But I am enjoying this. There are lots of 12 volt, there's 2 12 volt power outlets in the front. There are 2 USB outlets in the front. It's a nice place to be. It feels sumptuous and it feels padded. I'd quite like to spend some more time in a Vignale. Now, maybe there's just one more Ford I can drive before I go today. Right. Last Ford for today, and this one is rather quiet. It's a Mondeo. It's a Mondeo Vignale. It's got a slightly cracked passenger door mirror, I notice. I'm just saying that now as a disclaimer, because it was like that when I got it, sir, honest. And this one is quiet. I was talking about how quiet Fords were earlier on with another journalist who was talking about the noise cancelling in the Edge. But listen to how quiet this Mondeo is as I pull away. I'm moving. Yep, electric power. This one is a hybrid. How about that? The engine cuts in. So we rolled away initially under electric power, and now it's using its engine. Ooh, picking up lots of stones and things. bit warm in here. I may have to turn the air conditioning on, which is no good for recording podcasts. Wind blowing across a microphone is never terribly welcome. Right. Ooh, makes an interesting sound. And there's quite a disconnect. I won't say a disconnect. There's quite a disconnection, because that's the correct use of the word in my opinion, between what your right foot is doing and what the car is doing, because this has got a CVT gearbox, a continuously variable transmission, not a gearbox, sorry, CVT transmission. Haha, CVT transmission is like an ATM machine and a PIN number. They call it tautology. You don't need a PIN number. When you get the N in PIN, stands for number. You don't need an ATM machine when the M in ATM stands for machine, and you don't need a CVT transmission when the T stands for transmission. But here we go. Could this be the future for Fords? Hybrid technology. It does well in America as the Fusion. I think they sell quite a few Fusions, but I don't know anyone who's driven a hybrid UK or European Ford yet. So hey, what do I think? Well, I'll drive it for a bit and then I'll tell you. I found the button for the air conditioning, which has cooled me down on this hot day. I think I can turn the whole thing off now. Well, that was a very interesting experience. I like the dash. I like the way that the dash is just a really great big speedo in the middle and lots of digital information on either side. Something very retro and old-fashioned about it. Also, it is quite a quick car. Perhaps because of that disconnection between your foot and the sound that the engine makes, you tend to use your throttle a bit more. And you put your foot down, nothing happens, and then suddenly it all happens, and you're doing ridiculous speeds very quietly as well. And of course you get all that sound that you get from a hybrid when you're in energy recovery mode. I liked it. I liked my whole Vignale experience. Which one did I like the best? Did I like the hybrid Mondeo or did I like the Vignale S-Max? I think the Vignale hybrid Mondeo was more refined, even though it's a CVT. It was more refined than the diesel in the S-Max. So if it's refinement that you're paying for with the Vignale spec, I think you get it with the electric combination. They claim a combined MPG of 67.3 miles per gallon for this luxury Mondeo. Very nice it is too. This car costs £32,270 with the options that are on it, which include active city stop, metallic paint, active park assist, rear sun blinds, power opening sunroof, £600, and adaptive cruise control, £450. Well, that's Ford in good shape. Certainly the cars are in good shape. Everything that I've driven today has been very interesting indeed.
Gareth Jones on speed.
Well, that was a very productive day, an opportunity to drive a broad range of very different cars from the Ford range, from that curious EcoSport, I do want to call it the EcoSport, the astonishing ST200, the luxurious S-Max, and the whisper quiet Vignale hybrid Mondeo. I've learnt a lot about Ford today. Some of the things, notes of stuff I've picked up while I'm here. Ford took on 20,000 pieces of customer feedback from how people use their Sync 2 system, that's their entertainment system, and I've taken on board all those thoughts to improve it for the Sync 3. Well, to be fair, I didn't really explore that today. In the time that I had the car, I was driving it rather than operating any of the systems, but I did use the nav very easily in the last two cars I drove today, which has got me back to Ford's Henry Ford Academy. And I suppose, job done really. I've unlearned my Ford, or rather I've learned a great deal about Ford. I don't think I've unlearned anything I knew about Ford previously. But perhaps the most shocking and interesting departure for Ford is the thought I'll leave you with today. They said that Ford are changing. All big companies say this, don't they? But this lot really are changing. By 2021, Ford are going to be in the sphere of not just manufacturing cars, but they're going to get into what they call personal mobility. This is the future where we don't all own cars, but we do car sharing, we join car clubs, or autonomous cars come and pick us up at our door and take us where we want to go. So by 2021, Ford will have a car with no steering wheel and no pedals available. They've just bought a company called Chariot, who are from San Francisco, and they have been developing that technology along with Ford, and that's how these megaliths work, isn't it? They swallow up the little guys, take on their ideas and incorporate it into their own, just in the same way that the Borg do with technology in Star Trek. Your technological distinctiveness is added to our own. That's what the Borg say, and Ford say the same. That's it. I was Gareth Jones. I've been unlearning about Ford. Now you can unlisten to this podcast. See ya.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!